Thanks to Cometeer for sponsoring today's video. If you're looking to buy an EV and specifically a Tesla, you need to understand the changes that are coming that will affect how much money you can save. In this video, I'll break down the new proposed changes to the EV tax credit and reveal Tesla's genius plan that could potentially bring a $10,000 check to your pocket if you buy a Tesla in the near future. Now, when the most recent month ends up being the hottest month ever recorded in Earth's history, that's when you definitely know climate change is a big deal, so it's no surprise that electric vehicle adoption is being emphasized more and more. In fact, the US wants to invest a lot of money into electric vehicle infrastructure and EV incentives, and it's safe to say that Tesla has been leading the EV charge, no pun intended, during the last decade. Now, according to the US Department of Energy, in 2019, the Model 3 accounted for half of all electric vehicle sales, and even better, for the entirety of last year, Tesla vehicles accounted for 79% of new electric vehicle registrations. And now, new data from Experian shows that total EV sales are up to 214,000 units in the US compared to 98,000 during the same period last year, which is a 117% growth year over year. And Tesla is still dominating the US with about 66% of the entire EV market. However, electric vehicles still only account for 2.5% of the overall auto market, which is way too low. Now, to fix this, there are new proposals for modifying the current EV tax credit, which could help speed up EV adoption and save buyers thousands of dollars. But some people want to keep the most dominant player, Tesla, out of the equation. However, Tesla has played this game before, and they have a plan to continue as the EV leader. Now, the 13-year-old EV tax credit is not the most straightforward concept, so I'll try to break it down in simple terms. Currently, buyers of certain electric vehicles can reduce their total annual federal tax burden by up to $7,500 if they owe that amount or more. For example, if I owe the federal government $10,000 in taxes and I buy a qualifying electric vehicle that's eligible for the full credit, then my federal tax liability lowers by $7,500. However, if an EV buyer owes the government less than $7,500 for their total annual tax liability, the tax credit only goes up to what they owe, and the buyer doesn't get any type of refund check for the difference. Now, the current tax credit also begins a quarterly phase-out for automakers that have sold 200,000 qualifying vehicles. Tesla and GM are the only two companies to pass that threshold as of now, which means their cars don't qualify for any tax credit. But there are some important proposed changes to the EV tax credit in a new bill called Clean Energy for America Act. Now, here are the top 5 biggest proposed changes and how one particular change affects Tesla in an interesting way. Now, change number 1, the 200,000 sales cap phase out is eliminated. Now, this would make the full tax credit available again to buyers of all electric vehicles from GM and Tesla who have both been ineligible for the past couple of years. And the phase out is retroactive to May 24th, 2021, so buyers of Tesla and GM EVs that purchased after May 24th could potentially apply the credit on their 2021 tax return. Which brings us to change number 2, an additional $2,500 tax credit for qualifying EVs with final assembly in the US. Now, this rule is clearly intended to incentivize both US and non-US manufacturers to make their assembly US-based. Tesla assembles all their US cars in the US, so this would increase their potential tax credit to $10,000, which could lead to the single greatest deal in car history, in my opinion, a single-motor Cybertruck with 250 miles of range that costs only $29,000. And while non-US automakers will be affected the most, some US automakers will lose out on the credit in certain cases, such as Ford, who currently produces the Mustang Mach-E in Mexico, so that car would be ineligible for the extra $2,500 unless they move the final assembly to the US. Moving on to change number 3, the tax credit becomes refundable. Now, this is a big change because instead of it being a credit that's limited to no more than the amount you owe in federal taxes for the year, this will make it so that you would get a check for the difference of the qualifying tax credit for the EV you purchase and your federal tax liability. Basically, it becomes a tax refund instead of a credit. For example, in the earlier scenario, when I owed $5,000 in federal taxes, it would not only credit that amount, but I could also receive a refund check up to $5,000 depending on what EV was purchased. Now, speaking of environmentally friendly, today's sponsor, Cometeer, is a brand new sustainable coffee brand, and it's my new favorite way of making coffee. Previously, I would be stuck on the same bag of beans for weeks with no variety, but Cometeer provides a unique way of getting pour-over quality coffee that is convenient, brewed 10 times stronger, and delivered in frozen recyclable aluminum capsules. Cometeer sources coffee from some of the world's best coffee roasters. Then they use their own proprietary technology to extract with precision. Then the brewed coffee is immediately flash frozen to lock in freshness and flavor. And all you have to do is melt the coffee puck by adding about 6 to 8 ounces of hot water for a smooth, rich cup. Aside from normal hot coffee, I've also enjoyed making iced coffee and iced lattes during this oppressively hot summer, and Cometeer is simply the best way to consistently get a great tasting cup of coffee at home in just a couple of minutes without any cleanup. Plus, all the packaging and shipping materials are 100% recyclable. Currently, Cometeer isn't even fully open up to the public, but by going through my link below, you're able to bypass the waitlist and also receive 50% off your first purchase. That comes out to just $1 per cup, so click the link below to get started today. Now, change number 4, Chinese-made vehicles are not eligible for any tax credits. This is a move that is trying to incentivize people to buy EVs that are mostly made in the US. But it not only affects future China-based brands such as NIO, XPeng, and others, but it also potentially affects automakers such as BMW, Polestar, Volvo, and others who currently produce EVs in China and export them to other countries. Now, this may force automakers to move their production to another country if they get desperate enough. Now, change number 5, the manufacturer's suggested retail price must be less than $80,000 to qualify for the tax credit. The details of this change are still up in the air, but this aims to exclude luxury EVs from qualifying for the tax credit since people buying them most likely don't have the need for a tax credit. Now, this means that any EV with an MSRP of $80,000 or above, excluding any destination fees or optional add-ons, will not be eligible for any credit at all. But it doesn't stop there. Recently, the US Senate voted to approve a non-binding amendment for a limit on the price of electric cars eligible for the full tax credit. It stated that only electric cars that cost less than $40,000 would be eligible. Now, this would cause many electric vehicles to lose out on the tax credit, including almost all Tesla vehicles and many future EVs coming to the market. Currently, the only Teslas that would be eligible if this proposal passes would be the Standard Range Plus Model 3, which costs $39,990, and the previously mentioned single motor Cybertruck, which hasn't even been released yet. But if the $40,000 limit proposal somehow does pass, Tesla has a clever plan to make sure that they can still save their customers money. I know this because they've already done it. If you go to the Model 3 configurator on Tesla's Canadian website, you will see a checkbox under the Standard Range Plus model labeled Limit to 151 kilometers range. That's equal to about 94 miles of range, and when you select it, the car's price decreases by a few $1,000s. This checkbox for this secret off-the-shelf Model 3 didn't even exist on the Canadian Model 3 page until April of this year. So why does this super low-range Model 3 even exist, and why is it only in Canada? Well, it's in response to the Canadian government, which introduced a program in 2019 where vehicles priced under $45,000 that cost no more than $55,000 after options would qualify for a $5,000 incentive. Initially, in Canada, the Model 3 lineup started at more than $45,000, so it did not qualify until April, that is. Tesla came up with an idea that was rather sly, if you will. It created a bare-bones low-price Model 3 with no intentions of people actually buying it, so that the normal Standard Range Plus Model 3 would be eligible for the credit. Pretty sneaky. So let's pretend the $40,000 price limit proposal gets through. Tesla could just do the same thing here in the US. They could add a checkbox to all their vehicle configurators online for an option to limit the range and features so that the price could come down to $39,000, for example. Now, this would allow the buyer to take advantage of the possible $10,000 refundable tax credit. And you know how Tesla is able to do this? Because the foundation for all their vehicles is software. A Tesla buyer could theoretically purchase a stripped-down version of whatever vehicle model they want to lock in the tax credit. Then once they get their car, they can pull out their Tesla app, go to the software upgrade section, and pay to unlock the features that were originally excluded, like more range, autopilot, and more. Tesla already has this capability. The only downside is that the original purchase of the car will show $40,000, which could affect insurance claims or resale value. But it is a very clever way for Tesla to utilize over-the-air software upgrade capabilities to ensure their customers are eligible for the full incentives going forward in case any of these strange price limit caps are included in the final bill. Remember, these proposals are not a done deal yet. The bill still needs to go through the proper legislation, and anything could change or be removed in the process, but this certainly looks like the leading proposal to reform the US EV incentive program, and whatever Tesla does end up doing, hopefully the final bill will lead to more people being able to reasonably transition to an electric vehicle as soon as possible. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to see more Tesla and tech videos in the future. My name is Andy. Thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you in the next one.